Our topic is coming from Psalms 121. God help those who seek him. God help those who seek him. In the first verse, reading from the New King James Version, it says, I will lift up my eyes to the hills, from whence cometh my help. You see, my brothers and sisters, the Psalms here is talking about looking to the hills of Mount Zion. Recognize that everything that he does or whatever he's going to do, that his help is coming from God. And it says, I will lift up my eyes to the hills, from whence cometh my help. Verse 2 says, my help comes from the Lord who make heaven and earth. You see, my brothers and sisters, the arms of flesh will fail you. But you see, my brothers and sisters, God will not. And it says, I will lift up my eyes unto the hills. So many times, my brothers and sisters, we feel discouraged in our spirit where we don't want to look anywhere. But the Bible is telling us through the experience of the psalmist that if you need some help, my brothers and sisters, all you have to do is look to the hills. And it says, I will lift up my eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help comes from the Lord, who makes heaven and earth. In Psalms 124, David talking about his help. It says, if David in Psalms 124, talking about his help, it says, if it has not been for the Lord who have been on our side, if it was not for the Lord who have been on our side, where would we be? And it says here, let Israel now say, let Israel now recognize, let the new Israel now recognize, the blood-bought, the blood-washed Israel now recognize that if it was not the Lord, it was not for the Lord that would have been on our side. When men rose up against us, then they would have swallowed up us alive. Then when the wrath was kindled against us, you see, my brothers and sisters, a Christian, a born-again believer must understand, must recognize that their help comes from God. And in Psalms, going back again to Psalms 121, when you recognize that your help, your mercy, the love that you have, the wherewithal that you have, the fortitude that you have come from God. And it says again in Psalms 121, I will lift up my eyes to the hills. I will lift up my eyes to Mount Zion, from whence my help cometh. My help comes from the Lord who make heaven and earth. In verse 4 of Psalms 124, it says, then the water would have overwhelmed us. The stream would have gone over our soul. Then the swollen waters would have gotten our soul. You see, my brothers and sisters, as a part in Psalms 124, verses 5, David recognized, you got to understand that here's a man, David, who recognized in the Psalms that he wrote that he had done a lot of wrongs, but God had protected him. His help had came from God. And so when David wrote here in Psalms 124, what he's saying is that he recognized that his help comes from God. You see, my brothers and sisters, once you recognize that wherever you are in life, it is the mercy of God that keeps it going. You see, my brothers and sisters, once you recognize that is only the mercy of God that keeps your life intact. It is the mercy of God that holds everything together. Once you recognize that God is all in all, once you recognize that we can't do anything as Christians,